sir. Oh, there you go.
Wait a minute.
What, did John have a Parish Council for Dummies book in here or something?
Well, I looked it up and I couldn't find it.
Yeah. Alrighty, sir. We give everybody 3 to 5 minutes. Go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then for you, why you're running for re-election.
Yeah, I won't need nearly that long because I've been in office for 8 years. I'm Scooter Keene, and I'm running for re-election in District 3. I'm currently the councilman in District 3. I've been married to my wife, Kay, for 38 years, and we have 3 wonderful children, 2 grandchildren that are just amazing. Went to Disney World with them this past weekend in case people didn't hear that from one of the people running against me. I'll do it again next week if I need to. But let's see, what else did you want to know? I'm also an elected member of the Republican State Central Committee, and I've been endorsed by the the Parish Republican Party. And those are both big deals to me. You know, I've been a Republican, I would say all my life. I was independent for just long enough where I almost got ran out of the house because I told my mom I was going to vote for Evan Edwards. And she goes, "You got to get out, boy." So I changed my registration.
What do you do professionally?
Oh, and I own Quick and Handy Dry Cleaners. Me and my wife Kay's been in there 38 years together, Monday through Fridays, and you can find us right over here on Railroad Avenue.
All right, so let's dive into it. Why are you running for re-election?
The main reason I'm running for re-election is because there's some unfinished business, as you know, between the zoning, major road projects, the cleaning out of the Tickfall, Amite rivers, parish-wide drainage. I mean, there's so many things that aren't finished that I'd like to be here to see. Going to get a new parish president. I've only worked under Leighton, and I love Leighton Ricks. He's been a very good supporter of mine. And we've gotten along well. But I want to see what happens with a different parish president, but with a different perspective for our parish.
So what are you, when you're talking about a new parish president, you'll also be you'll have 6 new members,
Yes.
Potentially 7 should you lose. But should you win and be elected, hey, it's all speculative at this point.
It is.
We still got a couple of weeks left,
Yeah.
a week and a half until early voting. Just as a reminder for those of you out there, it does begin September 30th. What are you looking forward to doing after some of those things you've already discussed?
Oh, after. It's going to take a while to do the things that I've already discussed. You're talking about down the road farther?
Sure.
Well, it depends on how the next parish president goes. Doesn't do his job, you may see me run for that position.
Oh, well, we're already declaring
I'm
for
just saying,
the 2027 election.
Because, I mean, some of the other people running for parish council have said that we're at a crossroads, we're at a turning point. We've been at a crossroads and a turning point. It seems like all we do is fight up there. And that's not the case. We've done many, many things, like you said about 125. 125 is a great set of ordinances, and we did them about 2 years ago, and one project has been started under 125 since we've done it. They're very strict. They're very expensive for the developers, but yet people say, we don't do anything. You hadn't been doing anything. Well, about the past year and a half over the District 5 zoning maps, we didn't do anything but argue, and it looked terrible. And that's the main reason I ran 8 years ago, because Livingston Parish was getting a black eye every time the TV would come on. It's horrible what you said. We don't need, I think Brian Ross even said 10 minutes on the news, they hollering at each other again. And that needs to stop. Unity, we'll have unity. John Wascom's been a fantastic chairman. And I think if he wins his election, he'll probably continue to be the chairman next time. I mean, I don't want to do that job. I talk too much to be that, and I stay nervous whenever there's a microphone. You can tell I'm always nervous when there's it's hard to believe, but many things that, so you said what happens after these things?
Sure. So currently the council's working through.
Start on?
Okay, let's start with this. We have more strict regulations on development. Zoning has come. In District 3, which is your district, its areas north of Denham Springs, a lot of north-south laterals that are receiving a lot of development. So talk to us about how you believe that zoning in 125 has helped that and what you're looking for in the future.
Well, zoning hadn't helped at all in District 3. My map's been ready since the very first day. I never touched it once. I never looked at individual properties and went, maybe somebody's going to build something there. I'm going to change it. And that's what the big problem has been in the district that got thrown out. You can ask Eddie. I went in there and said, Eddie, the map's ready? He goes, yes, sir. I said, looks good to me. Now that we found out that we can't, the parish council was not supposed to zone. Well, we didn't know this. It seemed like we could have, somebody somewhere said, hey, I know y'all want to zone, but you can't. It's got to be planning and zoning. And so now that we know that, Mr. Villavaso, who was hired, he's working diligently to get our zoning maps, get our ordinances all lined up. I think Shane Mack had alluded to the fact that he's going to be working on these impact fees to tell us what we can do legally that will hold up in court. Because if you don't get it right, developers are going to challenge it because it's going to cost them a fortune. Yes, they're going to pass it on to the final person who buys that product, but they still have to come up with it up front, as Denham Springs with their sewage made them anything over 150 lots? Yeah, over 50 lots, they have to pay up front. And it's a pretty big number, and that's important. 1.5 million. Yeah. So,
it's 1 to 50 lots is just an application for permit. 51 to 150 is half, and 151 or over is full.
Right. So you had asked about the zoning in District 3. We're actually mostly covered by the zone. It's already full. There's some places on Dunn Road and Linder Road that are available. And that's where residential development should happen, where the other things are. We've made an MPO project on Dunn Road. It's 20 feet wide now. It's striped. It's got reflectors, so it's much safer. I just talked to the engineer today. Linder Road will be let probably in the first quarter of next year and be completed by 2025, done exactly like Dunn Road. I thought Burgess was going to be done that soon. All we have for Burgess is a bridge right now. But it has if it doesn't qualify, which it does qualify for MPO, but if we don't want to wait that long before we overlay it, we can overlay it. But the north-south corridors that travel, the state has done my district a big favor by putting a roundabout by the old Carters, roundabout at Dunn Road. We're getting Jubin North. I didn't mention that. That's another reason I wanted to stay here. I've been for 8 years, I've been pushing, saying we need Jubin North. Get some of that heat off of Walker, get some of that heat off of Denham, let them have a new way to travel to get up to Lockhart. It's going to have a roundabout at Burgess. They can continue on. We can bring in people to our businesses on Jubin Crossing from Central. They have nowhere to shop. They'll come pay our taxes for us if they can get there easily. Make it easy on Eden Church Road. Most of the kids using the park and the families, that's a bottleneck on Eden Church Road. If you take 30% of the traffic off of that and put it on Jubin North, it's a major safety factor.
Sure. Speaking about Eden Church, drainage in that area has been improved. Your district is covered by Gravity Drainage District 1. Yeah. So you're in a funded drainage district. But as Mr. Parker talked about earlier, who is also in a funded district, there are discussions about the parish-wide drainage. Obviously, a large section of it currently unfunded. What are your feelings about parish-wide drainage and a plan and how to make that happen?
Well, I have a distinct situation where I have all 3 funded districts are in my in Gravity 3, Gravity 1, 5, and 2. District 3 has all of those, but there's none that isn't funded. So we can get our water out. And I've heard people running against me saying, oh, the drainage, the drainage. Excuse me. I get very few drainage problems in my district because they get it done in 2, they get it to 1, a little bit of 5, and it's gone. But then it stops down below. because they're not funded. So the best way to do that, let's for instance, what I think they've got a 0.5-cent sales tax, Kyle, isn't that it too? 0.5-cent sales tax. Well, we have a 0.5-cent sales tax and a 5 mil property tax in Gravity 1. So when we talk about having a plan for the entire parish, if every district isn't funded as highly as one is, how can that work? So what we've been talking to Jeff Ard, Tracy, a bunch of people over the last 6, 7, 8 years, since the flood especially, if we do a drainage plan for the entire parish and have a one fee per property, $100, $200, we can take an average of what 2's paying, 5's paying, 1's paying, and that's what you would pay. If it's $155, that's your drainage fee, you know? And there was talk in the past that, you know, the west side could vote this in and just shove it down the throats of everybody that didn't want to pay. I don't think that's the right way of doing it. I mean, you know, we're all people and drainage is for everybody. But right at this moment, we got the 3 funded districts and then 8. That's a big unfunded district that they vote no every time you put up a drainage tax, but they're yelling, why don't you fix our drainage? Well, you can't use road fund money to do it. So what would you do it with? And that's where we're at right now on that. I think just a one fee for every structure in the parish, every address. You know, you got 3 addresses, it's going to cost you three times. That's what happens with me and my business and my house. You know, we all pay extra.
So you just talked about it used to be separated into 2 districts. They dissolved those, made it into one after a failed tax attempt. How you just talked about the fee, but you said, you know, the West, which would be Denham, Watson, Walker, cannot force it down the East third. So how would you?
We can how with our vote, because if let's say this, so right now in Gravity 1, we're paying 2 fees. The other 2 are only paying 1. So we could go to my people in 1 and say, look, if we vote in this 1 fee for everybody, you don't pay a sales tax and a millage. So their amount would go down and everybody would pay. You know, the same thing across the entire parish, which would make it the right thing to do. Will that pass? How do you know? We don't even know who's going to win these elections, right?
Sure.
And so, but if you don't start that discussion, both parish president candidates are talking about a master drainage plan and a master drainage system. So if you have one board running all the outlying districts, you know, there's 3 right now, there's 4. One's unfunded. Bring one person from each one, bring them to a board in the middle, then they can coordinate and discuss what's happening. And if they're all paying the same thing, then they'll have funding to, you set a priority list of what needs to be fixed in drainage. You know, in District 3, we have some minor street flooding, a couple of houses that may get water in them when you get that 8-inch rain in 2 hours, 3 hours. But other than that, it's all nuisance, you know. But you can't fix a flash flood anyhow, no matter how much money you throw at it. All you can do is fix at it, you know, and have the laterals and the streams open as best you can. But I think without a plan, how are you going to work a plan if you don't have a plan? Right now, there's no plan. It's all these different districts.
You brought up funding several times. Grants, as we talked about with Mr. Parker, have become a huge source of funding for local governments. How would you, we talked about Livingston Office of Homeland Security, which does a lot of the grant writing for the parish. I believe there is someone in the administrative office that does some identifying of grants. How would you, first, how do you feel about grant funding? And second, if you feel positively about it, how would you, as a council member, try to go after more of them?
Oh, I absolutely believe we should get every grant that we can possibly get. Here's the problem. I've been trying for 8 years, let's say 7 years, to set aside part of our road fund, 10% a year, let's say, put it in a matching fund. I was told you can't do that. Oh, you can't do that. That's horrible. Well, if it's $30 million a year now, you put $3 million in there, few years, you got enough to get a huge amount of money. I went to a meeting in Clay Shake Snyder's office 2 years ago when they had the $400 million surplus in the state. You know how much Livingston Parish applied for? Zero. It was for drainage and roads. You know why it was zero? We had zero matching funds. Because I think Travis Thorpe mentioned the other night that discretionary funding is like less than $2 million a year to cover all the extra things. So if you don't have a fund set aside to go after these grants, you can't go get them. You know, and $10 million, you can get $100 million. That's a no-brainer to me. Find the money, set it aside. Then when those grants are available, you can go after them.
So one of the things we also talked with Mr. Parker about, and it was discussed with parish council candidates on Saturday night, is animal control.
Mm-hmm.
That's become a big topic of conversation, especially parish-wide. What are your feelings on the current state of the animal control, Livingston Parish animal control, and how would you try to expand funding?
Well, I think they do a really good job with what they have to work with. You know, it's mainly animals that are dangerous, things like that go out there. And some large animals that they find that are neglected, they'll take those, but they don't go to the animal control. They're farmed off to different people that handle those large animals and feed them. We've been talking about animal control for 8 years, and we keep getting, I heard all kinds of people running saying it gets kicked down the road. It only comes out whenever it's an election time. We don't fund anything. The council can only make laws and send them to administration to fund. Matter of fact, I pulled it up today, and it says in the animal control ordinance that was written, I think in 2000, it's been amended a few times. They add what types of euthanasia have to be used if you need to do that. It says, be it further ordained, provision of this ordinance shall take effect only upon funding being appropriated for implementation. That has nothing to do with the parish council. We have no say over any of the funding. That's administration. So we're hearing both sides running for parish president saying they want animal control, right? We do need that. Where's the funding going to come from? I heard somebody say, I'm not going to say who it was, but the jail bond is paid off. So let's just take that money and use it for animal control. Well, it doesn't work like that. What the people vote in a tax on has to be used for that. Now, we can put it back on the ballot and say, look, here's a brand new tax. One of them said just amend it. You can amend it. It's a brand new tax if you're going to put it for animal control instead of anything else. And I'm not opposed to doing that, but I do think that would fail in our current climate because we're taxed to death, right? We all are. As a small business owner, I mean, we can barely make it, you know, and hopefully next year we'll get a new president. Well, he won't go into effect until 25, but maybe things will change for the better. Animal control. I love animals. I have animals, but I always put people above animals. And when people are flooding, their lives are in total disarray. They can't even take care of their own animals then. So let's fix the things that we have to fix. Continue. Doesn't mean we can't work on several things at one time, but the parish council does not work on this. They can just put it in place. We don't fund anything. Can't spend any money.
So, excuse me, having the same problem you are.
Oh, I thought I shocked you with something maybe.
No, nothing shocks me with you anymore. So moving forward,
okay.
We're talking about, sorry.
No, you good.
It's getting late. It's been a long day. We're talking about funding. One of the things I want to go back to is the road program.
Mm-hmm.
That is something that, you know, y'all continuously apply for new roads to be put on the list.
Right.
Going forward, actually, let's go back into 2017.
Right.
The council did approve for them to skip a year to apply for a grant.
Yep. Worked well, too. We got a lot of money.
Sure. Can you tell us why that didn't happen again, if you know? And would you shoot for that again, especially since there were certain debts have been paid off, so there is more money in the road fund?
Yeah, well, you know, when we first got in, I think we were like 1.2 million a year was something really low. But this bond that was in the way, which we've all said pushed us forward. It didn't hinder us as much as you thought it would have. But now that it's paid off, I don't know what happened, why they didn't apply, because we don't have any say on those going after bonds and going, you know.
Sure, I was just wondering if they had mentioned anything to you, because they did tell you that this is the plan. We're going to skip this year. Right.
Yeah. Jennifer came to us and said, look, if we do this, we can do that. And it was great. It was great. We got to cover quite a few things. I can tell you this, I'm never for bonding out that road fund ever again. And I'm hearing people out there now that are running for high office saying that. No way. It's not going to happen. Now, we want to bond, if you want to bond out a certain segment of our road fund for a list of roads, let's say you pick 10 or 12 roads out and it's $10-12 million. Let's bond that out, pay it off in 5 years, 6 years, then make another list. But you have got to have the money for maintaining, for the road ditches that drain the roads. So if you bond out all the money, what are you going to do for maintenance? You're just going to go, it'll be all right. 20 years from now, we'll clean the ditch out again. That don't make sense to me.
So obviously you're not against bonding, but would you be for skipping a year?
Yeah.
Do for that plan that they had in 2017, 18, 19? I
would, but when we're getting upwards of $18 to $30 million a year now, I just think if we just took a segment of that, a little small 10% for a couple of years, we wouldn't need to ever skip a year. And then whenever the grants became available, bam, you can go get, a bigger bang for your buck. But I wouldn't be against skipping a year or two. I had talked to Jeff Ard 3 years ago about, we have so many crushed culverts along our parish roads, and they're not expensive, but they're expensive for some to change out. Well, the town of Walker took some of their monies and put it aside, and I think it's every other year, it might be every year, they use it to change out, crushed culverts so that the water can flow. So if we did that with a little bit of the road fund, I wouldn't have an issue with that either. But, we were told by the powers that be, you can't just start doing that because everybody's going to want a free culvert. Well, if it keeps water out of one house because you went and changed the culvert out that somebody couldn't afford, then I'm good with that.
Just want to be sure I'm clear. You want to take part of that road fund to do that? Because it's for that. Right. It's for maintaining the drainage along our parish roads. So, I mean, I've had them come along on different roads in my district and identify, because I ride every single road, especially when it's raining hard. I left on Thanksgiving last year and went out in the middle of it because I want to see what's happening. So I can report it to Gravity Drainage or DPW or whoever needs to know that, hey, there's a blockage here, there's a problem there. Probably 5 or 6 culverts on one road were completely crushed and stopping the flow. Nobody living at those properties. Well, just dig them out. When somebody buys the property and wants to move in, they can put them a new culvert in. I mean, that's. So one of the things that you talked about was the MPO, which is the Metropolitan Planning Organization. There's a lot of large road programs that goes through that. You mentioned Linder and Burgess. Yeah. Obviously, Linder in the program going to happen, as you said, at the beginning of 2024. Yeah. What you mentioned, Burgess is just a bridge. Tell us a little bit about that, as that's one of your north-south laterals.
Oh, absolutely. That's the line between me and Tracy Girlinghouse is Burgess Road, and I would imagine whenever they do Juban North and they make that roundabout, at that time is when that MPO project would proceed. Because it will become a major north-south lateral then, because you can go up Burgess and it's just about the same distance either way to go to Walker or to Watson. You just pop right out. That they get off at the interstate, boom, straight up there, up Burgess. But it's curvy and narrow and no sides on the road right now, so it's going to get pretty hairy once we get that road open.
You're saying that Burgess would be hairy if Juban North opened before any kind of overlading. Yeah,
we don't do something, either fix some of the problems or, get it in, get the MPO. It is in the MPO project. Mm-hmm. Chad Bacchus told me that today. It is there. They're not pushing it as hard because we have these other projects that we're having to get through with, which Juban North is. I think it's also an MPO project. So that's where we want to fund. That was number one. So all of these roads don't happen because I want them to happen. You know, the Metropolitan Planning Organization, they get together and you present them with roads. So Mr. Gerald Burns' group, the Master Plan Review that my wife is on, I appointed her so I wouldn't have secondhand. I'd have it straight from my wife what's going on. When Mr. Gerald presents us with that list, Juba North was always at the top of that list. Between it and the 4-laning of the bridge at Walker over the interstate, which is also very important. I think that's going to happen next year. And then the widening of Walker South down to the hospital entrance or Buddy Ellis, whichever way they go, that'll happen soon after. And that's going to be very paramount in getting the people to flow through there properly.
So you got 3 minutes. Do you want me to ask you another question?
Yeah, ask me a question.
Okay, so you talked about Mr. Gerald Burns and the Master Plan Committee.
Yep.
One of the things that they brought back up was the master plan, which was passed by resolution, which, as you and I have discussed, is non-binding. However, there are a lot of pieces that have been discussed as of late, including a master drainage plan, among other things. You've talked a lot about funding. These cost money. Where would you believe that you could go find the funding for those kinds of things?
Well, I don't know. Again, we don't fund, but we can go searching to help the parish know what to look for. So here's the problem with the master plan. I think the master plan was a great thing to start. That's why we passed it by ordinance in 18 and passed it on to the parish. Well, from that day, it said you had to hire a planner to help do all the other steps. Well, they started interviewing people. It was $300,000 just to hire a planner, which was not budgeted. So I said, well, budget it for next year. Had to come out of that discretionary money. Well, there was not enough. So Layton has not been against the master plan. Everybody's like, y'all kicking it down the road, putting it under your arm. That's not true. Parish Council passed it. It is law. But if you don't have the funding, if you got the funding just to hire a planner and not do anything else, you just wasted that money too. But if you don't get started. So now with the zoning maps being so messed up because people messed with them, not that they were bad. My map, I mean, it looks fine. And he was wrong. There's no zoning map in District 2.
Okay. It's
not passed. Me and Gary didn't do it because we knew something was wrong. And so everybody, you know, we joined at the hip. Y'all know that, right? Our districts are very similar. That's why, you know. But until that funding is done, how can we move forward? So right now we're going to be working on the zoning and the zoning ordinances and any impact fees. So you didn't ask me about that. Thank goodness.
We didn't get there.
But I'm not against impact fees either. If they're done properly and they have to be used in the area they're collected that the impact happens in.
Because we were talking about funding, that was going to be my next question.
Yeah.
If you would like to take, you got 13 seconds.
Well, I mean, it's impact fees are passed on to the consumer. I think that they need to be looked at very hard. I think that our planning professional is going to tell us what we can do and how legally we can make them stick.
All right. Well, thank you, sir. Appreciate you taking the time. If you want to reintroduce yourself and tell people how they can get in touch with you.
Scooter Keene, running for re-election. This will be my third term. Number 81 on your ballot. Vote early, vote often.
Yes, and early voting starts on September 30th.
That's
so
right.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We appreciate
and we appreciate you here at the bookstore for having this. It's been great.
All right, John, if you want to jump back up there while you're walking up there, early voting is September 30th through October 7th. It is not Sunday, October 1st. That is from, I believe it's 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. to 6 a.m. 6 p.m. Woo, long day. And you can either go to the Registrar of Voters office in Livingston or to the Denham Springs Walker branch of the library, which is on Highway 190.
Excellent. Yeah. Next event's October 4th, Parish Council District 4, as well as a few other races. And hopefully we'll be able to light a fire under some butts of some other people that have yet to RSVP.
We're trying.
And thanks for the candidates, and thanks for attending, and thanks for watching.